Yo, what's up, everybody? Billy's got his dance going on. I like that. I like that. I got to step up my moves over here. What's up, everybody?
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today. Everybody watching live for a very special guest, Nick Riggle, for episode 149. What's going on, Billy? Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing all right. It's afternoon here.
Afternoon. That's right.
Barely, but yeah, afternoon. I'm doing all
Yeah.
right. I'm a little, I'm coming down with something, so apologies if I sound a little coarse or whatever, but it's the time of year everyone's getting sick and everyone's catching something, so I must have caught something from somebody. But
That's true. We got some COVID going around
COVID,
over here
that's
too.
still a
Yeah.
thing? That's still a thing?
I think so. Apparently they downgraded it, but it seems to be still a
Downgraded.
thing. But it's not as deadly as it once was. But some people
I,
around town are starting to get a little sick. It's that time.
I hope I don't have that. It's just a little scratchy throat, but we're going
Yeah.
to muscle through it. We're going to have a good show today. I'm pumped. We're ready to go.
Yeah, I'm super pumped. Thank you again, everyone who's joining. It's been a few weeks since we've had a guest on the show. We did a couple of Channel 11s, but because of everything happening in New York with the events and everything after, it's been a while since we've had a guest. So I'm really
Yeah.
excited for this one, and I feel like this person is a hammer. I've been trying to get this person on for a little bit now, but this is like I believe this is like a fan favorite, a show favorite, an OG favorite.
hmm
Nick Riggle, VG6, Salomon video. We can go on forever, but this is a true OG. So I'm really excited to, and an innovator, like one of the first innovators, like in this. I mean, I guess you can say everyone's an innovator, but I would say like he thought outside of the box in a way where bladers really weren't doing that at the time. So super excited to get into all of this stuff with Nick. But before I do, I just want to say, please, if you don't already, follow us on all of our social media platforms. We have a Facebook, you can give us a like. We have an Instagram, you can give us a follow. If you like what you're listening to and you like the show, you can follow us on YouTube. You can subscribe, hit the notification bell. So when we do have a live episode, you get a notification on your phone. We have an iTunes. You can give us a 5-star rating. If you like what you're listening to, you can give us a review. And we also have a Patreon. If you would like to support us on the back end, it would be $3 a month. And that gives you exclusive content to our section commentary that we do after the show. We would do that with Nick today, but we only have him for a certain amount of time, so we're not going to be able to. But we have that with a lot of other guests. We have trick tips. We have exclusive access to asking questions to our guests on our Patreon. When you want to, you get the announcement you hear before anyone else does, and you get the opportunity to ask a question. And you are also automatically entered to a free drawing to win something from our online store that we do every month. That could be a shirt, it could be a hat, it could be a mug. So that is my spiel for today. And
Lovely spiel. You haven't lost a thing,
thank
Billy.
you.
I want to give a shout out to our new Patreon supporters this week. We have Uriel Rosales and Jane Osborne. Thank you so much for supporting the show on Patreon. And we have a WTF before we get going. This is a couple weeks old, but we haven't featured it on the show, and we can't not feature this clip because it's so ridiculous. We got Diaco Diaby by Patreon supporter Chris Deester
Oh, yeah.
with, this, I guess he claims is the world's first. I don't argue this, but first soul grind to Cork 900 out on a street spot. I mean, not a street spot, more like a rail on flat ground, not like a vert ramp or anything like that. So if you
It's
haven't
like a
seen that already,
DIY.
yeah, this is from Anthony Potier's event he had a few weeks ago, which looked insane. The turnout is crazy. The skate park is wild. I forgot what he called the skate park, but it's like a big, massive, crazy DIY, almost like if you give like a 5-year-old a crayon and draw like a skate park. That's kind of what he
Right.
did here. But a super sick, huge turnout. Julian Cadeau also had a sick one too on this rail, but I just wanted to feature one of them. So we got Diaco on this one, and it's wild, laced perfectly, probably a world's first.
Yeah. So this DIY is like a blader DIY, huh?
I think
I
it's
mean, you
Anthony.
can tell by the spots. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Anthony Potier himself like make this. I'm sure he has help with like other friends too, but I'm sure it's. I think it's primarily rollerblading based. So yeah, all the rails seem to be like round, and he posts all the time on his Instagram him building all the spots. So he does a lot of contributing to this place. It's really sick.
Yeah, that's
So,
great. I mean, I think more rollerbladers should be involved in contributing to like the DIY things instead of just using them. It's cool to like see bladers do it because bladers have their own unique like there are things only bladers would build because it has like
Yeah.
different abilities than the other sports. So
Yeah, it's
that's
cool.
cool.
He's connected in the community as well. I always see him post pictures, like clips of him like scooter kids and skateboarders and stuff like that. Because obviously, if there's a DIY local in the area, everyone's going to come check it out. So it's kind of cool. It seems like a little hub for all the extreme sports people, and they all seem to get along pretty well, which is awesome to see. So shout out to Diaco. Thank you so much for killing it on the blades all these years. I believe we are ready to go. Are we ready to go, Billy, with our guest?
Yeah, we're ready to go. I just want to say real quick, just to add to what you were saying, that's a good way to like get involved and meet people in your community. Build a DIY. You get to know everybody. You'll
Definitely.
become friends with all the skateboarders and BMXers and scooters.
Yeah, even if there is already a DIY from skateboarding or BMX or something like that, like rollerblades can still contribute something to the spot, and that way we all get a piece of the pie.
That's right.
Like the Jeffersons.
The pizza pie. All right.
But let's bring in our guest. We have our very special guest this week. Everybody, please welcome Nick Riggle.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, Nick, thank you for taking the time to join us today. I know you have a super busy day, but thanks for penciling us in.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. I'm a fan, and of course of your skating, but also of the podcast. So it's cool to join the crowd.
Thank you. Thanks for being on the show. This is awesome to have you on here.
Yeah, thanks, man.
We have a lot to get into, and we have a window, so I want to be sure we get to everything. But so much to talk about. We have Peld, we have VG6, we have the Salomon era, we have your life after skating, and I'm very interested about like your experience in New York City as well, because when I was there, I heard you were there, and I was like, oh, I heard people were seeing you around the city, and I never got to see you, but I was like, oh, I hope I bump into Nick one of these days. But I'm curious to know, how did it all start for you? I know you were, I think, either NorCal or Nevada, some sort. I know like the skating with the Peld guys, some of them were from Reno. I think you might have been up north in Santa Rosa. So how did you get introduced to this wacky world of rollerblading?
Yeah, so I grew up in Santa Rosa, so Northern California. And my friend, Andy Cadu, got rollerblades in maybe 5th grade. And so that would have been like 1990 or 91. And they were proper branded, brand rollerblades. And the first time I saw them, I was like, what are those? Those look so cool. Because I mean, I think back then, they would have like neon wheels and like blue boots and white frame. They were all over the place and like visually just cool. And I think the next year, maybe I got rollerblades for Christmas. They were not branded. They were like these Big Five Sporting Good, like they didn't even have urethane wheels. They had like plastic wheels. I don't know if you ever encountered this. They weren't great,
those.
but they rolled around, and I learned how to just kind of jump off stairs and mess around. That same year, or like just a year later, my family moved across town, and to the west side of Santa Rosa, where within like a couple months, a cement skate park opened up, and I watched it being built and stuff, and I was like, what is that? And it was like a couple blocks from my house, and so I would skate over there and like watch it being built, and then it opened up, and I think we even like snuck in a bit, before it was even open, just tried to roll around, and it just became my favorite place in the world. And I went there every day, and stuff at home was like kind of mixed. So I just like enjoyed being kind of like at the park and doing my own thing. And yeah, I got pretty good really fast. I mean, I remember that was like 7th grade when that opened maybe. And by the end of 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, I was like full on, I think one of the things that really transformed my skating was, this kid down the street had macro blades with like brand new, like giant wheels. They were like, I don't know, I didn't think they were even bigger than 72s, but they were huge, and they were like clear, and they were hyper something or other, I forget the name. But I still had these old skates, and I had already worn through the wheels, and I was like, half of them were just plastic, and they were just like busted. And I had this Flying V guitar that
Sick.
I got in the classified ads. It was kind of it had horrible action, and
Yeah.
but I
It looks
liked it. I
cool.
rocked out on it. This guy, he liked my guitar, and I was like, well, then trade me for those macro blades, dude. And so, they were like the three buckles, and they were just like 1,000 times faster than my, like, I didn't even, they were like unwieldy. It was like riding like a sports bike after just being on a cruiser or something.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he was like, all right, I'll trade you. And so we traded. And then like the next day he came back and was like, oh, my parents said I have to trade back. We're like 12 or something. And I was like, no, you can't trade back. Like you traded. Like, that's it.
No
Because I
backseats.
love, they were so good. Yeah. And that was I had those for a while. And that's where I started like really like carving through the bowls more and like getting some air over the hips and just like really feeling it out. And, those didn't, I think I got, by then you could get like, because those skates, I don't think you could really put like grind plates on them and stuff. And anti-rocker wasn't really a thing yet. And it was just like, once that all started coming out, I got some other skates. And yeah, that's kind of the beginning of it all.
I, I was saying, I love that you mentioned the plastic wheels. I remember my first skates had plastic wheels too, and that's like something that's unheard of nowadays. And I remember like the seam in the middle of the wheel would crack sometimes, and it would just have like a hollow wheel inside, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like a flat tire.
Yeah,
Skating,
exactly.
I would imagine skating bowls with that being impossible.
Yeah,
I
I
just wanted
got to a point where I couldn't really do anything. Like, yeah.
exactly. It'd be good nowadays for like all the sliding swivelly stuff that's happening now. It'd probably be a different story.
True. Yeah.
My bad, guys. I drank a lot of water before the show, and I didn't go to the bathroom, so I'm just gonna leave you here real quick for a minute
Do
while
it.
I do that. So excuse me.
This is like a Jump Street first, like the first few minutes into the show. But that's fun. So I would imagine that park is the park that's pretty well that you skate like pretty famously in VG6, right?
Yeah. 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 So, yeah, that park is in a lot of things that I did. A lot of video sections. It shows up, and if you look through the old magazines, it's like there's a bunch of pictures. The cover of Box magazine from like 1994 or something. Like
Yeah.
really early on. That's that park. Yeah. So yeah, it was cool. Like, rollerblading was new at the time. Like, in terms of, especially in terms of, it wasn't new as like a recreational thing, but it was new in terms of like, oh, the rollerbladers are now at the skate park. Like, what's going on with that?
Yeah,
Um,
you're obviously like doing it from the beginning. It sounds like 91. That's like as I think
yeah.
Chris Edwards
I
started his
mean,
first rail in November 21st, 91. So
yeah,
that's
totally. Like,
the inception.
I, the hoax came out and I was like, what is that? It was like, I was like
Yeah.
there for like all of the, I wasn't, those guys like Mitchell and Edwards and Arlo and stuff, they were like a little older, but, I absolutely looked up to them from the very beginning. And, but skating that park was a bit like harrowing because I was really young and I was rollerblading, and the skateboarders were really, initially like really kind of like there's a lot of animosity towards rollerblading, so it felt like almost a little dangerous sometimes to skate there. But over the first couple of years, I mean, I came to know that park so well, and to like run lines that the skateboarders weren't running, and to just do things, and they started to kind of admire my commitment to that skate park and to like knowing it, and to being there all the time. That after a little while, like the people who were mean to me were ones who were outsiders, and the skateboarders would actually be like, yo, he's cool, like, just watch him skate. And then, so the vibe was actually pretty good there, compared to a lot of other places
That's
for
really
me.
cool that that's really cool that
Yeah.
you were able to break through that because um I mean, I've heard stories like I think we had a different experience growing up in New York versus like California in terms of how the skateboarding was with the rollerblading. I
Yeah.
think like a lot of that culture is like comes from like the surfing and then kind of went down to skateboarding. So it's kind of like a
Yeah.
my wave culture, like you know what I mean, and then get off my wave
Yeah.
kind of thing. And so when I first came to
Totally.
California and I felt that I was like it was very alien to me. I was like, what is
Yeah.
that? But it's cool that
Yeah.
you were able to break through that just by showing up every day and skating and like finding new ways to skate the park. And after a while, if
Yeah.
people keep showing up, especially if you give them a hard time, it's pretty hard not to respect them, you know?
Yeah, I think that's the place we got to. And, they would see me like kind of imitating them, their lines. And then I would take them further because I could, with my rollerblades, I could go a little higher and a little faster. And they would see that and be like, oh, dang, like, that dude rips.
Hmm.
And then, of
Yeah.
course we got to know each other by name. But like, I think the biggest thing there is that like they influenced my sensibility as a skater, like deeply.
Mm.
So I grew up skating cement bowls that didn't have any coping and that were pretty like raw, and doing lines and like, catching air and doing spins. And I could grind, but I wasn't like, and I skated tons of street too, like around town. But my home base was always that skate park, and I think that really shaped my visions for what to skate. Even on the streets, I'm kind of like a little bit bored by just like skating a rail or something like that, or doing switch ups. I'm like, I want to go fast. I want to like spin. I want to like jump off stuff. And that was kind of like formative, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can really tell with that because that park, just from looking at it, looks like a lot of tight transitions. It doesn't look like
Yeah.
incredibly inviting for like coping style tricks. There's big rounded edges. It looks like a little chunky. It looks tough to skate if you're like paying attention to it. So if that's where you're
Yeah.
spending most of your time, like not skating like a perfect P-rail or a perfect coping, and then just having to figure out style, I would imagine that it would have a big influence on your approach.
Yeah, it did. I mean, and yeah, just the terrain and the lines and the kind of like, you know, a lot of things were even at that little park, like open ended, kind of like, oh, could you jump from this part of the snake run to the other part of the snake run? Or can you do a 360 over this like kind of burly, like mid center thing? Like, um, and it took some getting used to. A lot of pros would come through town before I was pro, and just like flounder at that park, and they'd watch me go and like, damn. But it's like you couldn't, even if you were super good at rollerblading. I remember Randy Spicer coming through, um, way back in the day, '96 maybe, and maybe earlier. I don't know. I can't remember. But he was kind of, and Randy was good at like jump ramps and park and stuff, even when he was little, and he was kind of like, kind of perplexed by the park, because it takes time to get to know all the little bumps and divots and the way certain parts kind of launch you, and yeah, so
Yeah, I feel like the style of those parks are like definitely tough, and it kind of like reminds me of like the '80s era where they just like ramps but you can definitely tell that it had an impact on your skating
yeah,
and you obviously like figure that place out really well. Like I just remember like the hippie clinch 540s, all these like
Hmm.
you had these very special things around that
yeah.
park that was like very cool.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, when you're just jumping off like big bowls and like over hips all the time, like, I just experimented so much with that. And like, I was doing like late 540s and like bio illusion fakey threes with like a hippie clean, like stuff that like I don't even know if it ever got filmed, but like it's like some of the hardest tricks I ever did were just at that park, like just
yeah.
me skating, like,
Hmm.
I don't know if anyone even saw them sometimes, and I think also like, the wheelies and stuff. I mean, a lot of that was from skateboarding. I mean, because uh, I would see a huge contrast when I'd skate at that park between what the skateboarders thought was like interesting from what I was doing and what the rollerbladers thought was interesting. And there was this kind of funny time in the mid to late '90s, early 2000s where I I think a lot of, I don't want to put this too crudely, but there was a lot of anxiety among rollerbladers about you know looking like too effeminate or too kind of getting that kind of. I feel like they had like skateboarders in the back of their mind, like, oh, I don't want to be critiqued. I want to like
Right.
look
I
cool
did
all
it.
the time and like try to
Yeah.
look like I'm doing like really dangerous
Overcompensating,
stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah,
like
kind of
overcompensation.
overcompensating.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Finding an
And
identity. Yeah.
so like wheelies on the rollerblading end were like thought to be part of the like things to avoid. Those don't look
Mm,
cool. Those are like too rollerblading-y or something.
mm,
And but when I was doing them at the skate park, trying to do like, I think I was the first one to do like wheelie switch ups and stuff, and like spin into wheelies and spin out. Um, when I did that at the skate park, skateboarders loved that shit. They were like, "Whoa, what is that? Like, we've never seen that. You've never seen you do that. Like, keep doing that." And I was like, "Yeah, it's super fun." But when I do this in competitions, people are like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah. You jumped into
I'm sorry. Austin, I'm sorry because I want to kind of grow off this point for a second because it's something I wanted to get to. But yeah, I was going to mention that because I think also when I was younger and I was like it took me a few years to like really appreciate your skating fully, because when I was younger, I was like really captivated by like big drops, like huge rails, like, when you're like a young teenager or adolescent, preteen. And you're kind of like the extreme side, right? Like, or whatever the world is promoting in that way. And it took me till I was older to like understand your skating. But during that time, blading had like you said, like a very strong ethos of like how to, hey, we're this, we're tough, believe us, please believe us, we're not gay, or we're not effeminate, or whatever. It was kind of like the attitude. Because of like trying to compensate for whatever criticism or critiques we were getting from skateboarding. But you and your crew, like you, Andy Kiddo, like Mike Burke, Eric Burke, I feel like you always were like out of that. You were like the first crew that was kind of like putting a middle finger up to even the blading ethos, like in your own way. So I was wondering, like, was like the park a big influence of that, or was like, what was the mentality behind all that? And I think that takes courage too, also, to like do that in the face of what's popular in blading. So if you can get into that for a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like it was kind of a perfect storm of talent and like creativity and just like vision, where there was this local skate shop called Get In Line used to run this all night skate thing in this like big hangar in this local fairground. And like people would come, like TJ Weber and Michael Palick, and like big names would come, and we'd just like skate all night. And actually I got my first sponsor because Ginger Conrad from Kryptonics was there, kind of like scouting, and I was just showing off as hard as I could. And we hooked up, and she gave me some wheels and put me on like a flow thing, and then that was my first like, well, I'm getting free wheels. This is awesome, because like but those events were really cool. And one of them, this is like 94, 95, and one of them, Eric and Mike Burke came, and we immediately clicked. Like, it was the first time I met them, and I didn't even really know who they were. Like, Eric was like a vert skater, and I was like watching him skate vert, but then he would do some stuff on these little like handrails, and I thought that was cool. And we were just kind of like eyeing each other and like skating together a bit, and like we were like, let's skate more. And it was kind of my combination of like the sort of park perspective on street, or like the weird like cement bowl perspective on street, and like the sort of like, I was trying to do all these like bio 720s and other like spins and misty flips and stuff. And Eric was like, he just had this creativity about him, this kind of like natural creative insight on street and on ramps and stuff. And I don't know, just like, it was kind of like, I think he and I just like clicked in this way that gave us this kind of different perspective on what would be interesting or what would be fun. I think fun was a big part of it. Peld was just like a big fun thing that like, it's Paul Soldate and Andy Cadu, and as a skate crew, Mike Choli, and we like just had a ton of fun together. And I think part of our vibe was that, like, as much as we respected like all the hammers and stuff, it just wasn't as fun. Like, it was way more fun to find a weird spot and like, or roll off a roof, or do like a wheelie to a grind, or see what's up with negatives. And so we were always just kind of like creatively exploring, and I think our, whatever innovations we did add to the kind of lexicon, like, I think came from just this like collective spirit of like, let's mess around and have fun. And not be anxious about what rollerblading is and just like be rollerbladers and try to like see what we can do with these things. Yeah.
That's so cool. It took me like 20 years of skating to discover that kind of fun. Like,
Yeah.
like I think when I first started, it was a lot of it was about like, especially in like New York and our environment, we were like, oh, respect, prove yourself, to get to the. It was like about like getting to
Yeah.
like that kind of thing. At least in the '90s and like late '90s when we were kind of going
Yeah.
around and but it's just so cool to have like your base like evolve, be like what's fun, and then see what develops out of that, and to
Yeah.
see like everything that was created out of that was, I think at the time you were like the first one doing a lot of this stuff. And like there was always like when I would watch your skating, I would always like love like the big fives and all these things. But like the heroes things, I had to get older and deeper into skating or have a more refined idea of it to really get what was happening. And now I look back and I'm like, wow, this is like really impressive, like super futuristic stuff, like innovative stuff that people are really applying today. Have you like seen like a lot of that
Yeah.
stuff kind of gone further than it's been in like the past few years?
Yo, I mean, I couldn't be happier as like a spectator because like, I mean, that's basically what I am. I do rollerblade a little bit, but I hurt my neck about a year and a half ago, and it's been hard to kind of come back from that. I have a lot of neck damage from a fall I had when I was like 19. It fell like directly onto my head, and
Ooh.
it didn't. It's not aging well. I'm like 42 now, um, so I kind of like I was skating a bunch about a year and a half ago, and then I just like tweaked my neck, and I tried to come back from it, but it's been hard. But anyway, so I'm more of a spectator, and I can't believe what I'm seeing. Like it's like a dream come true. I can't even emphasize that enough. Like, you know, I don't know, like in the early 2000s, like 2000 or 8, 10, whatever. There was the mushroom bladers were doing all kinds of cool stuff. I was super excited about that. Um, but I mean, it's just gone to a place that I could never have imagined it going. Like with, I mean, the way Broskow is skating, or like Colin Martin and the Kelso brothers, and you guys, like, I just can't even like. It's truly a dream come true to watch this level of innovation. It's like stuff that I wanted to do, like in my dreams, I'm seeing people do now, and I'm just like, I can't. It's just like I feel so lucky because it's like, wow, rollerblading came into its own in a way that I always wanted it to, and I'm just like watching it happen on Instagram and stuff, and it's just like so fun to
Mhm.
watch. I'm like, I'm like in the middle of my. I'm a professor now, so like I'm in the middle of my like low key professor life, like dropping my phone out of excitement in my office. Like, what the? I think the latest one was Broskow doing that. Like, what did he do? It was like alley oop
So
soul for like
he did the soul grind to toe roll to alley oop
to
toe roll to back to
yes,
That's
that's what
soul
it
on the
so.
was.
ledge. Yeah, yeah,
To alley oop soul. I was just like, I couldn't believe it, dude. I was like, this is
yeah.
just yeah. Um,
Yeah, you're like a big part of that kind of movement, I guess. And during this whole conversation,
I was
I'm
about to say, and I don't mean to cut you off. I was about to say, I think he was like one of the first mushroom bladers, if you think
yeah,
about it. But
yeah, that's what I'm
yeah,
thinking
yeah,
about too. And I'm like,
yeah,
you're going through the whole story of everything, and it all seems so natural. It's just you and your buddies hanging out, skating, just skating the way you want to skate. And looking back on it, during the whole history of skating, from starting from the '90s, whatever, people like you, Chris Edwards, Eric Burke, always doing
yeah,
like these toe roll things, weird variations, unusual
yeah,
tricks. It's always been there in skating, but it just never
yeah,
stuck for some reason. There's always been somebody throughout every generation of skating in the last like 30 years, whatever, who has done this, but it never really stuck until recently. And we all go through
yeah,
the whole like mantra of like, we were trying to be like super masculine. Like speaking of the mushroom blading guys, we had Joey McGarry on the show, and he used to make a joke
yeah,
saying that back in the day, they used to be like, "Oh, look how heterosexual we are." Like that's how like skating was at a time. But now like we're
please
just
believe us.
yeah, now we're just only realizing that all this stuff is fun, and it just makes no
yeah,
sense because people have been doing this forever, and we're only now realizing it's fun. Why do you think that people
yeah.
overlooked that style of skating for so many decades?
I mean, I think, it's a great question. I mean, so um, maybe I can talk quickly about the mushroom blading thing because it just popped into my mind when you were saying that. Um, that term came from Andy Cruz.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys know that story, but probably it's out there. But
Tell it
um,
anyway.
Yeah, so Andy Cruz, was watching the way that we were skating, and he was like, "You guys are mushroom bladers. It's like you're blading on mushrooms." And he called like Latimer was an acid blader, and he had like drug names for every skating style, and
That's funny.
and we were kind of like, "Oh, we like that, that kind of like stuck because it wasn't totally incorrect. I mean, we weren't like on mushrooms, but like I think we did have that kind of like creative perspective on things, and yeah. So sorry, I lost the thread. You were asking me about.
But yeah, I was just saying because that quote mushroom blading style of skating has been around since the beginning. Everyone's been doing it. There's always been somebody doing it.
Why did that become kind
how
of
did
the
that
evolution?
not? Yeah, nobody ever openly hated on it that I could remember anyway. But it just never stuck for some reason. And now all of us who have been in the game since the '90s are like in the last few years finally realizing this is like a cool, fun way to skate. Like how was it like overlooked so long? Plus. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
are only now maturing now, like 30 years in? Is that why skating failed over all these years?
I mean, I think it took skateboarding that long, right? It took skateboarding probably 25 years to like really. It wasn't until the mid to late 90s where it really started kind of becoming this new thing that was fully developed. And I don't know, maybe it's just the timeline for rollerblading, and maybe it was even a little harder because they got a boost in the 90s that. Our boost would have been equivalently like 2010 early, but we've just been kind of like underground for a while still, and doing rollerbladers doing their own thing with their own means, and lacking that kind of big time like media and financial support. But I mean, yeah, I think maybe it is that just kind of self exploration when like you're not in the limelight, you're just trying to like keep doing this thing that you love and exploring it and finding like, oh, you know what? Like this thing I've overlooked is actually really fun. Like, the thing is, if you're doing wheelies switch ups or like spins into wheelies and spins out and stuff, you can skate in a tennis court. You know what I mean? Like that's pretty fun. Like if you just have like a little platform, like, and skateboarders, I feel like always had that, that ability to just like skate flat ground. And we always thought we needed like a 12 rail or like, a giant ramp or something. And now we're seeing that like, okay, you don't need to do hammers. Like, I mean, what was that thing that Broskow did? One of the coolest tricks I've ever seen, and that was on like a little curb up and like a little ledge.
Yeah, two stairs.
There's like nothing.
Yeah.
And I think there's power there. It's empowering to see that like, oh, wow, you can get super technical without having to find a 35-foot long rail that you can do 20 switch ups on. Like, you can just like skate a little ledge or I mean, the best example of this is all the mushroom blading videos. I mean, look at what they're skating, and tell me there's not just pure joy in that. And like, they're doing it together. There's community, there's technical innovation. You can take pride in what you're doing. Like, I mean, why not? And just embrace all of that in rollerblading. I mean, it really brings out the richness of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I think that's, it's especially like the way they did it, like the mushroom blader guys, is like the way they approached it. Yeah. And like, the access to joy, it's more of this like that the joy of rolling and like exploring in that way. It's a much different experience than being in front of a handrail and like trying to get all hyped up and stuff like that. But I mean, both have their value. But I definitely see how that is definitely much more like connected to like pure joy and enjoyment of having the wheels on your feet.
Yeah, I mean, there's like real thrill in throwing down hammers. I grew up. Once I became pro, I was on the Salomon team with Aaron Feinberg from the very beginning.
Oh, wow.
And so I got to, it's like me and Aaron Feinberg. There's the most polar opposite skating styles in the 90s.
Pro Vinny Mitten in the mix too. It's just like such
an
eclectic team.
We had the spectrum on that team, and we together designed that skate with the Salomon engineers, like from really early on. And so I'm sitting here like watching him do things that literally were unfathomable to me, like so technical, so hard, so dangerous. Like that dude would take so many risks, and it was amazing. But it just had this other character, this other kind of like flavor of just like power and kind of machismo and coolness. And we were I was over there like trying to do 180 heel roll to dark side topsoul or something like a little more low key, but also kind of like technical and interesting. And yeah, so yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it was,
Yeah,
No,
you
no,
see you see a lot of that now because there was a time where everyone kind of skated the same. You go to like a rail and everyone would just skate the rail and session the rail. But now you go to a spot,
yeah,
everyone's so diverse now. You go to the same spot and everybody finds something different to skate there, and that's like something that's way more common now than
yeah,
it was before. It sounds like exactly what you're explaining with you and Aaron, and
yeah, totally.
you just said something that I didn't even know was a thing. Like you guys designed the Salomon skate. I didn't know that you were a part of that. I would love
Yeah,
to get into what went into that because,
yeah.
as you probably know, that's one of the most sought after and you know popular skates of our entire like
Still the best
lifetime.
skate, man. Still the best skate. It's so
Exactly.
good.
What went into
It's
that?
so
Like,
comfortable.
where did that come from? Where did the concept come from? What went into
Yeah.
making that skate, and what made it so special?
Well, actually, so I already said foreshadowed it a bit. So Ginger Conrad, who I mentioned, she was working for Kryptonics, and I met her early on, and she put me on flow for Kryptonics in like '94 or something, maybe '95. But she went to work for Salomon because they wanted to get into the rollerblading industry, and she was hired, I think, as a kind of like team manager, as a kind of like team builder. Um, and she got a bunch of people together to start doing R&D on the Salomon skates. So the Salomon engineers, I mean, Salomon has just brilliant engineers. I mean, their hiking boots are the best. Like they're just so comfortable. Their ski boots, and so they knew what they were doing, and they had the money behind it too. And she got it together. She got together me, uh, Matt Andrews, Aaron Feinberg. I think Jake Elliott. He might have come a little later. I think Mikey Burke was there for a bit. Um, but like a handful of us. Um, and we would go down to Santa Monica I can't remember how frequently, but every few months, like maybe every 6 months. And they would have prototypes. And over 2 or 3 days, we would just skate all day. And like, okay, try this prototype. And then we'd fill out surveys and discuss, and they'd tweak them right on the site. And then we'd go out, skate again. Okay, were they comfortable? Is the sole plate big enough? Like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Is the ankle too high? Is the ankle too low? Like every little aspect was researched and developed over several sessions in Santa Monica, in Annecy, which is where Salomon is in France, and we'd go there and skate. We'd go to Switzerland and skate, in Paris a bit. So yeah, we actually like developed that skate over a long period of time before it was finally released, through like millions of little tweaks. Like I remember one session was just on the heel pad, and like, should it be thicker? Is it too long? Is it too short? Should we use this material, that material? And this engineer Renee we were working with was also just like super fun and brilliant, and yeah, it was just like a good group, and we all had kind of like different perspectives on skating, and the result of that was the whatever, the ST9 or whatever it was, and then when that came out, they selected some of us to be on the pro team, and just kind of went from there.
Oof.
it's so cool to like think about when blading and companies have like the resources to put that kind of R&D into products, and you could spend
Yeah,
like a whole whatever week focusing on like the sole plate, and then like you just
totally.
like
Yeah,
check that off the list and keep on like working your way down the list to like it's definitely not a shock that if that was their approach, why they still have a skate that people love to this day.
yeah. No, I think it just hits so many marks. I mean, it's so comfortable. It's so light. It's you can put it brand new on your foot and you feel like you're ready to go. Like that's pretty unique. Like you don't really feel like you break it in. You break it in and it feels even better. Um, and yeah, they also just had the resources. I mean, they paid us a salary. Once we were on the pro team, we got paid to do the R&D too. I can't remember what that was, but like we were salaried. They put us in every competition. We traveled around the world tons. Like that kind of like opportunity is amazing, and it was pretty unique so far in the history of rollerblading. I hope that changes, but
Hmm.
No, definitely. I remember even just like seeing the Salomon videos of you guys like traveling around Europe. I think you might have had some buses or vans or special treatment kind of stuff
yeah,
over there, and it
yeah,
was it was definitely like looking in, like that was the kind of stuff as like me as a young skater aspiring to be sponsored as a,
Yeah.
that's like, whoa, that's where we got to get, that's the goal there. So that they
Yeah.
definitely had some of that out there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we were going all over the world, man. Like if you look at my focus section, I know I can see this, but other people can't. Like every clip is in a totally different part of the world. It goes from
Wow.
like Japan to Germany to France to some parts of the U.S. to Canada. Like it's literally just like every clip is a different zone. And
Yeah.
that was us. We were traveling around. They bought us all like these Canon digital cameras, and everywhere we went, if it was for a competition or a tour, like we would just go out and film, and we had so much fun with all that stuff.
Yeah, that's so cool to see, and I would
Yeah,
imagine that, especially like, and I want to mention in a second, like your life after skating, philosophy and NYU and these things, and I would imagine like having the
yeah.
exposure to travel the world. I mean, for me, that was like the best education I ever had, like being able to, well, one, growing up in New York City was like an amazing education, but also two,
Oh yeah.
traveling the world and being able to like be exposed to all the different cultures, just like, and I would
Oh yeah.
imagine as someone who got into philosophy, that had pretty much like probably had a big impact, right?
It was huge. Yeah. So I dropped out of high school to do all this, that I described.
Wow.
I mean, at age 15, I was getting, Salomon was sending me to Paris and Barcelona, and
Wow.
I was like, you know, I was at this point where I would, this is what the story I always tell, but you know, I remember getting a D in PE while my PE teacher was bragging about seeing me on ESPN. Um, and I'm like, why am I getting a D? And she's like, well, you're not here, you're not here running the mile and stuff, doing the assignments. And I'm like, I'm literally fourth in the world. Like, could you maybe give me credit for that? Like,
That's
uh,
funny.
in the pro tour rankings, I was really high because I did pretty well,
Mhm.
and like I went to like a lot of competitions, so it just bumped me up. Um, and so I got to the point where my parents didn't hadn't gone to college, and they weren't really like, that was not a pressure point in my family. We were like, you have to go to college or else blah blah blah. And so I was getting all these opportunities to do things that like they could never provide for me, like the funding to like travel around the world. So they were totally cool with me dropping out and giving me those opportunities. So really grateful for that. But in all the downtime, I was like, I like really want to read, and because when you're traveling that much, I mean, sorry, is that my? I feel like there's a little feedback. I just want to make sure
Is
it's
that
not
feedback?
low.
It sounds like a train's passing by.
Oh, okay, okay, cool.
I don't know. I don't know what that is. Maybe that is feedback. I don't know.
Those are
Uh,
the like I think the sirens are going on in my neighborhood and their dogs howling. So
oh, nice.
sorry about
Okay,
that.
that's what that is. Okay, it's good
Yeah,
though.
so with all the downtime, I mean, I'm like, waiting for airplanes, on trains, like on a tour bus. I was just reading a lot. I really wanted to read and kind of like educate myself. And I was like studying music composition. I think there's a clip in one of the Salomon videos where I'm like on a bus, like with a notepad, like I'm literally studying like
I remember
formal
that.
music composition. And like that's the kind of shit I was doing, on the buses and stuff. And yeah, I just kind of like I was reading literature and about like the world's religions and science fiction and just kind of a lot of reading, and became this kind of little autodidact as I was like touring the world skating, and ultimately just kept returning to philosophy and kept being like, man, I really like this philosophy stuff. I'm like thinking about it, and um, it kind of doesn't leave my mind, and I want to keep following up on things, and so yeah, around age 20, 21. This is when like 2001, 2002, like, rollerblading is kind of hitting this, like something's happening. You can tell like it's kind of slowing down. But at the same time, like my parents had divorced, and I was kind of like, oh, I need to do something with my life. And it's that point that a lot of us reach in rollerblading where you can kind of decide to double down on the industry and like start something. Um, I actually even started Peld as a company. Um, I like registered it, and like I had merch, and I was gonna like I had some like thoughts about wheel designs, and I was really thinking about starting Peld as a legit company, and I just couldn't wrap my head around it. I didn't really have family members who were like business influences. I didn't really know anything about it. And I felt like I wanted to study philosophy. And so I just was like, look, I'm like 20. I'm going to go to college, community college. My local community college is really good, and study philosophy. And I can skate. I can skate when I can skate. I'll still have time to skate. And I just kind of started down that path instead of, starting a business in the industry. And yeah, I just kind of like, I was just hooked. Like, I was so nervous about going to, I was so nervous about going to community college because I had no identity as a scholar or as a school student. I I dropped out of high school in my junior year, but I did not care about school. I did okay because I was a conscientious student when I was there. But I mean, the skate park was literally across the street from my high school. So I'm like, okay, let's go. I don't care about this. I'm gonna go
Yeah.
skate. Um, and then I started traveling a lot, so I'd miss a lot of school. But when I started community college, I just had no sense of my ability at all, and I didn't know if I would fail, and I didn't have much guidance because my parents hadn't gone to college. I just felt really kind of like anxious and alone, and I think a lot of first gen students feel that way. And but yeah, I did really well in my first semester, and then I did really well in my second semester, and I actually got straight A's all through community college, and then I was able to transfer to Berkeley, where I also got straight A's. And yeah, I just realized, okay, like I can do this, and I love it, and so I'm just gonna kind of keep going. And yeah, I did. I applied to grad school and got into NYU and spent about 7 or 8 years in the city.
Ah, that's why you were
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember hearing through the pipeline that you were at NYU, and then maybe you were teaching. I'm curious to ask about that, but real quick, I just want to touch on like the whole Peld crew.
yeah,
Like all went on to do really cool things. Like
yeah,
Eric was like this like became this super cool artist, and I know Andy
totally.
and you guys dabbled with music for a while. Like Choli was like
Yeah,
surfing and traveling the world, and going on like
yeah,
these cool surf, just like the personalities that like whatever was in the crock pot when you guys were like all hanging out, it really
yeah,
developed like some cool thinking people. But
yeah. Yeah, we
yeah.
kind of like, I don't know. I feel like it's not quite accurate, but like we like worshipped creativity, you know? There was just this thing in the air, like
Mm,
we it's not like we wanted to be creative. We just knew how fun it was to like be creative.
mm,
And so I feel like we were always just like, what can we creatively do? And I feel like whenever we got together, it was like, oh, we're making music, or we're making a video edit, or we're doing art, or if it wasn't skating, it was something else. Like I mean, we'd do pranks, we'd fuck around, like we did all kinds of like fun weird shit. We would like The Burks were really good skiers, and
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they still are. But they brought that same energy to skiing. And um, yeah, and I just think that, like, I don't know, that was really formative for all of us. And although we've gone our separate ways over the years, like, we're still kind of like that spirit, I think, is still in us. There's another plug for mushroom blading, like, come on, put it in your heart, like you will grow.
Yeah, no, it's so cool to see that. And then like, so when I heard you were in NYU, like doing philosophy, I was like, it makes sense. So did you end up like, how was your experience in New York as someone from
Yeah,
Santa Rosa? Like you're immersing yourself in New York, and if I'm not mistaken, you were teaching out there a little bit as well, right?
a little bit. Yeah. Well, so I went there for my doctorate. So I got my PhD at NYU over 6 years, and then I lectured there sometimes over the summers, and then once I graduated, I spent a year lecturing there while I was like trying to get an academic job. And yeah, it was amazing. I mean, I feel like I thrived in New York City. I don't know, like my cosmopolitan upbringing. I mean, kind of by like age 14, I was like traveling around the world, like
Yeah.
frequently. I mean, like literally every month, I was going somewhere and gone for a couple weeks. Um, and then to land in New York, where I was on stipend at NYU, like they were paying me some money, and I didn't need that much money. I was just enjoying the city. And this is like, I landed there in 2007, when I feel like New York, the city was just thriving. Like Brooklyn was super fun, and it was
Yeah.
you know, I lived with Eric Burke for a bit in Bed-Stuy, and he was there doing some art school stuff for a while. And yeah, it was just amazing. I met my wife. We still feel really like bonded to New York City, and then I would go. It's funny because like I'd go out rollerblading, always by myself because I just didn't really know that many people, and but every once in a while I'd run into like bladers. One time at the Chelsea Piers Park, I ran into a whole crew, and I think they filmed a little spot of me. And then this other time I was skating in Carroll Gardens, and this is the weirdest experience. I'm skating in Carroll Gardens, just kind of like skating this little platform with two stairs and doing wheelies and little grinds and stuff. And I look down the street and I see this guy, and I'm like, man, damn, that looks like Jan. You know this guy Jan Welch, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, what the hell? And I keep looking, and I'm like, it's him just walking down the street. And I'm like, what are you doing there? And
That's
he's
a
like, what are you doing? Like, why is Nick Riggle just like randomly? It was a super random spot. Like, it wasn't like, it was like the most side streets of all side streets. And like we just somehow met on the street. But yeah, I didn't blade a ton over those years, but I definitely have been blading more since I got to San Diego like 8 years ago. But yeah.
Yeah, that's the joy of New York, just running into random people all the time. It's just
Yeah.
like part of the city, what it is. Everyone's always here, no matter whether you
Yeah.
live here or not. It's just like it happens, especially with skating too. I mean, that was completely random, but that's
Yeah.
that's one of the beauties of being in the city, which I'm glad that you experienced
Totally.
that.
Oh,
I know.
actually, speaking of, sorry, I just remembered this.
Okay.
When I first started dating my wife, my now wife, my girlfriend at the time, I don't even know if we were boyfriend girlfriend at the time, but we went to this party in South Williamsburg, like under the BQE, and it was like one of these, I don't know, super hipster parties at the time. But it's like way late. It's like 2 a.m. We're walking out. We're trying to get on the train, and these like kids start walking by us, just a group of kids. I don't know. I mean, I was like in my mid to late 20s, but these kids were maybe like 18, 19. And they like stop, and they're like, holy shit, that's Nick Riggle. And I'm like, I'm not even close to in that mode of like, I'm a rollerblader. Like, hey.
Yeah. So far
I'm just like
removed.
with my wife, we're like a little buzzed, and it's like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And she was like so impressed, she was like, how do kids just like stop you on the street? Like, that's amazing. And I was like, all right, that worked out in my favor.
Yeah, those kids might have helped you seal the deal.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's cool. Very cool.
I know that you just explaining that you went to NYU and you weren't really that in tune with skating at the time. Like it's not like you were like back in the pro days, whatever.
Yeah.
But did your take on philosophy change your skating, or like how did it change your skating? Because I know you were kind of getting into it during that time when you were pro. It seems like.
Yeah. I would say it's the other way around. Like my take on skating, I think, has influenced my approach to philosophy. Philosophy is a pretty, I don't know, in a lot of ways, it's a pretty rigid discipline. I mean, there's a lot of kind of rules and ways of going wrong and doing it poorly. And you really have to watch out for that. We need to do it well. And I think as a result, it makes it harder to be creative, or harder to feel like you're carving up your own lines, like rolling your own path. And especially in a way that's like, philosophy, I think, is also a very communal thing, like rollerblading is. But you want to do it in a way that isn't like alienating, that like brings other people into the ways you're thinking. And I feel like I did that with rollerblading, and I feel like, I always want to be doing that with philosophy. I do feel like it's harder, but I also, I'm not I'm not at the beginning of philosophy, right? There's a lot of tradition that I'm working with and within. Whereas in rollerblading, it was like no one was doing that stuff, and I was at the beginning, and I had that luck, But no, I do feel like the spirit of my skating, I hope, shows up in my philosophy to, not just to a little extent. Like I hope it's there, like kind of somewhat profoundly, maybe. I think it would take a very unique person to be able to recognize that, right? Someone who kind of knows what I was up to in skating, and also is able to like follow what I'm doing in philosophy. But maybe someone will see that.
Definitely. I got you there. It's once I asked you that question, you were like, no, it's the other way. My skating influenced my
Makes
philosophy. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I heard a gasp in the crowd of online viewers that we had watching right now. But yeah, we know you have to go in a little bit, but we want to give
No, I'm good. Yeah, I've got a good 30 minutes at least. Yeah, so
okay. We wanted to make sure we give our audience an opportunity to ask questions and stuff like that, if that's cool with you. Are you going to jump into that, Billy?
Yeah, I want to jump into the questions from the audience. I don't know if we have any for Patreon. Everyone who's watching right now, please, if you know, and I know you heard me say it before, hit the like button. It helps us. But before we get into the questions, I just wanted to just touch really quick on your friendship with Eric Burke, because I wasn't aware that you lived with him in Brooklyn. And it's so funny, like when I've had this experience with John Bellino, like we've skated together and then gone on to like play music and been in bands together, and then like it's kind of like this friendship transcends like through like different cultures, subcultures, and then it like that's there, and it seems like that exists between you and Eric. And Eric, I'm like, I would love to have him on the show, and I'm super fascinated with him. I think the guy rode his bike from Portugal to like Denmark. The guy is just very interesting person. But I was curious, do you guys still have a friendship, and do you guys keep in touch?
yeah, unfortunately we don't, man. I wish we did. We kind of lost touch after we lived together in Bed-Stuy. I mean, there was never like a falling out or anything. I think we just kind of like, kind of went our own ways and did our own things, and just haven't really like connected much over the last, I don't know, 10 years or so. Yeah, I think it's a bit unfortunate, but yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, well, sorry to put you on the spot. I felt like the answer was going to be the other way.
I know. I would have thought, but for some reason, there's just kind of like it's kind of drop off.
Yeah, that your fatherhood, traveling life, like things happen, and then next thing you know, years pass. So I can get a sense for that as well. And,
for sure, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I think at the moment we're going to open it up for questions. I've asked our live audience if they have any questions. Austin, do we have anything in the Patreon?
Yeah, we got a couple Patreon questions. We'll start with this while people get their questions in the live chat. First one from Tim Parker on Patreon, who asks, what are you pursuing in the way of music nowadays? Your music was always super inspirational back in the day.
Oh, man, that's nice to hear. Thank you for saying that. Nothing, sadly. So, yeah, so these days my music is more playing guitar for my boys. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and they're super like naturally musical. My 3-year-old Wolf loves to dance, and he like tries to play guitar, and he drums, and like he's just like super attuned to like rhythm and music. So, and sing, he likes to sing. So far he's really mostly into like obscure like Chicago indie punk music, so see where that goes.
It's very specific.
Yeah.
He loves this band Dead, Dehd.
Oh, Dead,
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't really play music much. I mean, my creative side is pretty satisfied through philosophy, but I also finished a novel fairly recently, and I'm kind of trying to sell that with my my literary fiction agent. So yeah, maybe look out for that. I wrote like a little song that's like a theme song for the novel, but that's the last thing I wrote, which is just a very I don't know if that will ever see the light of day, because that's just more personal. But yeah, the music was, a bit of the past, I guess we could say. Andy Cadu, who was my partner in Mellow Minds, is still making really cool music, and check it out. Drew Cadu, I think he goes by.
Very cool. Yeah, that's interesting to hear that he's still doing the music. Like I was wondering about that, especially like the Mellow Minds. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, you're talking to a bunch of drummers here, Nick.
Nice. Hobbyist,
hobbyist,
right.
Exactly. But I feel like the music just never leaves you. Even if you take a break for a little bit, you always have that itch. It's, I guess, similar to skating too. Totally. It's very relatable. Same thing.
Yeah, no, I mean my guitar the one I've had for years, a Taylor 810, is like on the wall in Wolf's room. So he's always looking at it. And if we're just messing around, I'll pull it down and show him some things and stuff like that. But
There you go.
yeah,
There you
yeah.
go.
Cool.
We have another question on Patreon from Same Boat, who says, philosophy meets rollerblading. Oh, nice. Excited for this one. I would love to hear Dr. Riggle speak on what he currently finds most interesting aesthetically in skating, or perhaps most beautiful. Which philosophers or concepts have influenced him the most? And if he has any tricks for my students, ages 12 to 14, to help them express their individuality and become awesome. Thank you, guys.
What
There's
a
a
good
lot in
question.
there. There's a lot in there, but those are great questions, all of them.
Wow.
That's really a sweet question that hits all my nodes. Got the skating, got the philosophy, got the teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess first,
So
what's
it-
most interesting and aesthetically
Yeah,
in
in
skating,
skating, I mean,
or most
I
beautiful?
think, we kind of covered it with like, I mean, I'm just like, I am a full stand for Broskow, and the Kelsos, and just like, everything they're doing, just is the best. And I can't wait to watch more and watch the things that they've done again. So yeah, that would stand out for me. And then, influentially in philosophy, I would say that the philosopher I sort of think about the most these days, sort of from the history of philosophy, is Friedrich Schiller, who I am very excited to be teaching next week here at the University of San Diego. So Schiller wrote a series of essays in the 1790s, and I think culminated in the letters, the letters on the aesthetic education of mankind. And I've co-written some papers on those letters, and with the philosopher Samantha Mathern at Harvard. And it's just kind of still on my mind. It's influenced where my work has gone a bit. I think of some of my stuff as kind of Schillerian in a way. So I would say Schiller's the guy. And then aside from Schiller, like just I don't know, like in skating, you have your crew and your people, and they support you, and they admire you, and they help you develop your style, and encourage you, and you do the same in turn. And that's also true in philosophy. And so I have my kind of crew and people who help me think through things and read papers of mine and comment on drafts. And I would say they are also a big influence on me. Their ways of thinking, which again, like skating, they can be really different ways of skating, different ways of thinking. Still, like there's a kind of nice, you can kind of vibe together and do philosophy as well as you possibly can by doing it in community in that way. And then the students, that's tough. I mean, I feel like when you're that young, you have a lot of pressure to conform, and you're learning about yourself, and you don't have a strong sense of self necessarily. And so I think the best thing to do probably is to be open-minded and explore, and don't rule things out, don't rule people out. Just try to understand where people are coming from and explore who you are. And
Yeah, that's good advice. I feel like if I were to talk to my younger self at that age too, it would be like, just be more open-minded about everything, and just absorb everything you can. Take a little bit from here, a little bit from there. You figure it out along your way, and you just make you pave your own path based on your experiences, your influences, stuff like that. That's like a perfect age to start like molding who you are as a person when you're older.
Exactly. Like if you're ruling something out in your mind, like that's a red flag, like no, turn your head towards that thing and kind of check it out a little more carefully.
Yep, exactly. Good advice, Nick. Good advice.
That's cool. That was an awesome answer.
Anything in the chat, Billy?
Yes, we have a few questions in the chat. I'm going to get to them, but before, I just wanted to touch on a question that I didn't get to. I was kind of going to push it along, but now that we have a bit of more of time with you, that I'm going to ask it. The name peld, where did it originate from? Because it's actually funny, and a bit of a tip of the cap, and respect to the old crew. There was a crew in Long Beach that they were calling them, with John Bellino and Jeremiah Doherty, and they were calling themselves Delp. and it was like a little like tribute. I was like, why are you guys calling yourselves Delp? And they're like, oh yeah, because Peld, remember Peld? I was like, oh, that's okay, I get it. But
I didn't
just
even know
curious.
that. That makes me so happy. I
Yeah,
love
it's
that.
funny.
I want to see the Delp section. Like, where's that? Like, let's see that
Yeah,
video.
they got to put it out right now. It just exists on Instagram, and they were like Delp, and I was like, what's that? And then so
Oh
that's a
my
funny.
gosh, that's the best.
I'll send you some stuff after
Thanks for
this.
sharing that. Like, you just made my day. That's so cool.
Nice.
Bellino obviously is also someone who I just like admire beyond belief. Like, just the skating is off the wall. Just so good. Literally off the wall with some of the wall ride things he's doing. Like, what the?
Yeah,
Wild boy.
definitely.
Anyway, so I'm gonna disappoint you. We're taking the meaning of peld to the grave, so no one's ever gonna know
Oh, I love that.
what the origin of the word is. So there's like a pact.
No, like that's
What?
even better. That's no, I like that better than you telling me where it came from. That's so cool.
We've never
right.
told anyone where
What?
it comes from. I mean, we know, but yeah, no one else will ever know. Maybe if you get into the crew, you will let you know.
It's a blood pact. It's like a mafia thing. Yeah.
That makes Peld so much sicker than it already was. That it's like another level right there. That's like a godly level right there.
I was about to say, I also just love the fact that like, packs made when young, like, or things that, sometimes you can get older and you can look back and be like, oh, that's silly. But the fact that you're still holding it and just like respecting those younger versions of yourself, like it's really cool to see. I love that. That's like one of my favorite answers. Okay, so I'm going to get into some of these questions that we have here in the chat. Sean Michelson says, hey, Nick, huge influence on my early skating, so thank you. I was a huge fan of yours and Andy's music. Any chance of a Mellow Minds reunion someday? I feel like we've already gotten this answer, but...
Yeah, I mean, probably not, but like Andy's still in the game, and he helped me. I mentioned that song I wrote for my novel. A few years ago, he helped me record it. So, we're still, in a sense, we're doing some music together. But I'm still trying to get Andy to give me, like, I don't really own all of our songs anymore because, like, the way that, like, digital music has, like, transferred different platforms and just I think I might have a CD somewhere, but, like, I just really want, like, a digital file of all the stuff we did, and still kind of waiting for him to give me that. But probably not, yeah. I get people asking me where they can get the music because it used to be available on MySpace, like, pretty much our whole, like, I think we did maybe, I don't know, 15 songs we recorded, maybe more, but they were all on MySpace, and now they're all like corrupted files. So I don't think it's really accessible to anyone. But yeah, you can find some of them on YouTube, but yeah.
Well, I hope you get the CD. I know what it's like. I have a bunch of songs that are just gone in the mist, and it's like, oh, I'd like to have those, but I hope you do get that CD.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Blade Till Dead, very technical question. Favorite skate setup and flat or anti?
Oh man. I would say flat, because that always gave me the freedom to go really fast in the bowls. Although I have to say there was a time when I was doing anti and I got to grinding the lips of the bowls. So like these bowls had these pretty fat lips. I mean,
right.
But when you had the right wide anti-rocker setup, if you went fast enough, you could just whoosh, like, and the longboarders would do it like with ease. They'd go around like half the bowl, and it looked so cool. And that was really fun, but ultimately, like, you can't go as fast. And I don't know. Maybe it's an aspect of my skating that I don't think about as much, but I was going fast a lot. Like, I was a very fast blader.
Definitely.
Even some of the wheelies that you see in the sections, you'll notice like I'm kind of buzzing. Like I'm going pretty quick, and so I like that power. I like to go fast, jump off things. You might do like a zero spin off some stairs, but land like 15 feet beyond the end of the stairs or something, just because it's more fun that way. But yeah, just like some kind of flat setup. I don't know. Right now I have USDs because I had Valos forever, and I just needed something new, and I was kind of lazy, and just grabbed some USDs, and yeah, I like them all right. They're not my favorite. I'm a bit spoiled, you know. I don't have any Salomon anymore, and I'm like, I
Yeah.
miss them.
I'm sure you could put a call out and somebody would send you a pair of Solomons. They're out there.
You could find
Are
them.
they?
They're out there. Yeah, they're out
Yeah,
there.
I would
still-
totally rock
eBay
those.
and yeah.
There's still a cult following for those.
Um,
I also just wanted to say I love that you call them wheelies and not heel rolls. I never heard someone
Right.
like consistently call it a wheelie
Right.
like that. I love that
Yeah.
you call it that. I just wanted
Yeah,
to
I
say
like
that.
it wheelies too. Yeah, there's a couple of like naming controversies. Like one is the wheelies heel roll toe roll thing. I think the general category is the wheelie, and then it could be like a toe roll, a heel roll,
Right.
heely, whatever. And the other one
Kashmir?
is like yeah. So Josh Petty and I started doing those at the same time. I remember it clearly. It was an ASA at in Orlando, and he was doing these like UFOs and then like lifting a foot, and I was like, oh, I'm doing that too, but I was doing them backside. So I would do it was on like a backside, but I would just come at it, you know, like
Punch
straight.
line.
I wouldn't like lift my foot necessarily, and
Yeah.
I was calling them a slap attack. Because you know they were semi balanced, but again it was really about speed and kind of just like almost like early fast slides where people weren't really balancing them. They were just like
Right.
going fast and like kind of like grinding. And so the early slap attacks were like that. But I guess the other name took hold, which I don't really like that name.
Putt slide? Slap attack
Yeah.
sounds cool. I like slap attack.
I like slap attack, you know. But then when people started balancing them, I mean, I balanced them actually a little bit, but like the real like long balance, like that's cool. Like I never was able to do that.
Yeah, I like that trick been through a few names. It was the slap attack. I heard along the way somewhere, I don't know how or who, Armageddon.
Oh, yeah.
I never heard that.
I heard Wonder Grind for it because Franco did one in like a 1998 or 1999 ASA in Bristol, Connecticut, and Arlo was like, "Wow, that's the first time I've seen one of those balanced. What do you call it?" And he was like, "Oh, it's a Wonder Grind because it's like a wonder that you can do it, right?"
Yeah,
And then
I like
Putt
that.
slide.
Yeah.
Hey, I like that too. Wonder Grind is kind
Pud
of cool.
slide, right? Pud slide.
Yeah.
Maybe that was Petty's name for it. I can't remember what he was calling it.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it was Pud slide. Yeah.
And also pap schmear. Can we talk about pap schmear? It's like
Yeah.
it's like the fish brain cess slide that you kind of introduced.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a thing I started doing at the Santa Rosa Bowls. There was this middle platform, and you could carve this bowl and then go down one of the snake run ramps and then just like hit this middle section. You could air over it, but it was like one side was like a nice pop, but then the other side was like this quick little, and so it was like super hard to land. But no, I ended up doing various tricks over it. But yeah, I realized you could kind of balance like a little fish brain style like cess slide. I was super into cess slides. I feel like that was another thing. Like I think I was the first one to do like cess slide to grinds and stuff. I would do like cess slide to kind grind down like rails, or like
That's
cess
right.
slide like the top of a ramp and then kind grind. Or I mean, I did other grinds too. I think I did cess slide to alley fish once, which was cool. But yeah, it was just I was into like along with the wheelies. I was into like, well, how can we just like slide on a surface, you know, and maybe like balance in weird ways. And the one that I just found just by far the most satisfying was the sort of like the sort of fish brain cess slide. Yeah, but those also I feel like got taken to a whole different level, which is very cool to watch too. People spinning and stuff, like, or doing more like of a torque one. I never was able to do that. Doing like a torque cess slide.
Yeah, that's tough on the ankle, that one, especially if
Yeah.
you're skating flat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I like
Well-
to do it like I don't know. In some of my sections, there's like I'll do a wheelie and then come up some stairs will be coming up, but then I'll kind of like do that cess slide kind of down the stairs.
Yeah.
Which is also like it's just fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember seeing that, and that's like the part, like what I meant, like I couldn't appreciate it till later when it was
Yeah.
happening, and you were like doing like wheelies to like fish brains to pap smears or whatever. Did you have a name for that? The fish brain sled? Is it pap smear?
Yeah, I think that's
That's
what
what Farmer
I
used to
can't
call it.
remember.
You call, yeah.
Yeah, I think I did call it that. I don't know. Now I'm embarrassed by that, but
It's a funny name. It's a funny name.
I don't know why I called it that.
Hey,
But
blading, you're in good company. Blading has a lot of funky names, so it's
Yeah.
for
okay.
sure, yeah, for sure. Not uncommon. Yeah. No, but like, no, I remember one of the funny things about like where blading is now, compared to where it was when I was doing it, um, is that like people will see what I was doing in my section and then be like, I never noticed that you did that until like I'm doing stuff like that, and like,
Yeah.
it just went past me before. And they're like, oh, I didn't notice that you did, like a pap smear down the stairs or something like that. Like I just saw
Yeah.
that.
There's a lot going on in
No,
your focus section. Like to watch that again
Yeah,
and again, there's a lot going on there
I
that
was just
you
yeah,
about
need to
to
watch more than
say.
once.
I was just about to say it's
yeah,
worth, if you haven't watched it in 10 years, it's definitely worth revisiting now,
Yeah.
especially with the kind of
yeah,
skating that's happening now. It's a
yeah,
great, you'll see where like a lot of the stuff that's happening today kind of came from, or like where those first ideas came from. So I definitely say it's worth
yeah,
revisiting.
yeah. Check out too the my Dyna video section, which I feel like
That's
there's not
right.
a good copy of it online. I found one a while back that was maybe on Vimeo, but it was like it had a sound delay.
Mhm.
So yeah, if anyone wants to put that online
I haven't seen that in
properly,
forever.
that'd be much appreciated.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's a bummer, like when things aren't online, it's almost like they don't exist. Like, you know what I mean? And there's
Exactly.
a lot of skate
yeah,
videos that
yeah,
aren't online, and it's like we really got as a community got to get on top of that for sure.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. The
Um, I,
archive.
I'll, I'll take it down with one more question, because I know you got a meeting coming up.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good one to end it on. Best Matt Andrews story. Do you have one?
I think the best ones I can't tell.
Okay.
But oh man, he's such a character. Um, so like Matt and I lived in New York at the same time.
That's right. Mhm.
Um, and he lived kind of all over the place, but uh, I think he lived in Harlem for a bit.
He was in the Bronx. He
In the
was in the
Bronx, yeah,
Bronx.
in the
Yeah.
Bronx.
Yeah.
And so we would connect now and then. But every once in a while, so I was at NYU, which is just south of Union Square. I would go up to grab the train or whatever, or go meet someone, and like, Matt would just be like chilling in Union Square, just like headphones on.
Yes.
Mhm.
Like, wait, there's
I
Matt.
ran
Like,
into him there. I
what's up,
ran into
dude?
him there a lot. Yeah, it's crazy. I lived on
Yeah, and
13th and 4th, so I would see him all the time there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and so he just kind of did his own thing, and we would like, oh, well, let's go on a walk or something, or let's hang out. Um, but like Matt and I were always we bunked together. So during the whole Salomon tour era, it was always he and I, in the same hotel room. And yeah, I don't know if I have like specific single stories. I mean, I do, but I feel like maybe not sharing them. But like he's just like a delight and like a really rad skater and a super super good guy.
I love that. I've actually had that experience with Matt before. I lived like a block away from Union Square, and I used to like walk just in front, and he'd be like, "Yo," and I'd be like, "What?" Sitting on the stairs, whatever, and just like
Yeah, sitting on the
people
stairs. Yeah,
watching. Yeah, just like people
yeah,
watching, because I used to go to Union Square to people watch too. It's like a fun thing to do if you're in New York. And I was just
yeah,
like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "Oh, I live here now." So I've definitely had that like random bump in moment with him.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so that's cool.
yeah,
Before I
yeah.
let you go, I know you have a meeting coming up. One, Dr. Riggle, is that okay? I think after 149 episodes, you're the first person with the distinguished title of doctor. So
All right. Yeah.
thank you for gracing our episode,
Dr.
uh,
Blader
Do-
Riddle.
Dr. Riggle. Um, and also, would you like to have? Do you have any like last words, parting words, shout outs, thank yous, anything before we let you go?
Oh, just say thanks to you guys. This was really fun. It's like I don't always get my memory jogged in quite this way, so it's really nice to, you know, be like bombarded with cool questions about the old days, and also, yeah, just to thanks for like the opportunity to reflect on where skating is now and where it's been, and it's just like it's really meaningful to think about these things and be in touch with the community a bit more than I tend to be, because I'm pretty busy with the professor life and 2 kids, and it's like I don't get to the skate park as much as I'd like to. So thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I feel like there's still so much to talk about too, that we maybe another time when we have more space, we can have you on and dive deeper into a lot of these things. But thank you so much for coming on. People are hyped to have you on. People are loving it in the chat right now. Thank you so much, everybody in the chat. If you're watching or whatever it is, if you aren't subscribed to the channel already, please do so. Like the video, drop a comment, let us know what you think about this episode or who else you want us to have on the show next. But Nick, you're the man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Austin. Thanks, Billy. Take care, guys.
Thank you. And one more thing, I got to say, if you're down with peld, then you're down with us.
Down with us.
Woo! We'll end it on that one. We'll see y'all later. Peace.
Bye, guys.
Ciao.